And now to South Africa, where opposition parties have called on the city of Ekurhuleni to be held accountable for the tanker explosion that took place on Saturday morning in Boksburg, east of Johannesburg. According to the Secretary General of Good Party and Member of Parliament, Brett Herron, the city of Ekurhuleni and transport operators have to explain if the city has dangerous goods route plans in place and whether they adhere to them. Herron adds that if laws of the city were not followed, there should be harsh consequences for those who break it. In the meantime, Economic Freedom Fighters, EFF, has called on the CEO of the truck company to be arrested and criminally charged. The driver of the truck has since been arrested and will appear in court this week. He faces multiple counts of culpable homicide and negligence. Now, to help us unpack this latest development, I am joined by Brett Herron, Secretary General, Good Party, and Nkululeko Dunga, the Chairperson of the Economic Freedom Fighters in Gauteng. Thank you so much, gentlemen, and I hope you had a lovely Christmas celebration.
Yeah, good afternoon to you, and afternoon to you.
All right, well, let's look at this devastating and heart-wrenching story as regards the explosion that happened right there in that particular axis. Now, let me start with Brett. Given the information available, what do you reckon are some of the critical questions that are still left unanswered as regards that tanker explosion?
The point that if all the rules of the road had been adhered to, this event would never have happened. So there are a number of questions that I think need to be answered. The starting point is whether the city of Ekurhuleni, in which Boksburg is located, whether it has, it's required by law to have, a dangerous goods transportation plan. So in other words, it must have its plan for the transportation by road of dangerous goods through its area, like every municipality in South Africa. So that's the first question. Does the city of Ekurhuleni have that plan? And the second question is, did the transport operator follow that plan? So in other words, were they on a approved and designated dangerous goods transportation route? Now, clearly they couldn't have been if given that the tragic event happened, because that road would never have been approved as a dangerous goods transport route. So does the city have that plan, and did the transport operators stick to it? There's a third question. The regulations in South Africa require the transport operators who transport dangerous goods to alert the fire brigade of each municipality of their plans to transport dangerous goods through that municipality. Now, if the transport operator alerted the city of Ekurhuleni, did the transport operator provide the route that was taken by this vehicle, and if so, why did the chief of police the fire chief not intervene to stop that route being used? The transport operators must be held responsible. So there are a lot of unanswered questions in the context of a highly regulated environment.
Well, Brett, before we start talking about the South African laws and what might or might not be, now the driver would be in court and would have to answer serious questions. Even the company too would have to answer why they had to take that particular route. But then the question is, could it have been averted whether or not there's a particular route being assigned for dangerous goods such as gas being transported? Could it have been averted?
It should have been averted, because the city's plan for the transportation of dangerous goods and liquid gas is regarded and identified as a dangerous good. So the city has to have a plan as to what routes those tankers can take as it transports the goods through its municipal area. So if the city had the plan and the transport operator stuck to that plan, then the terrible tragedy which has cost far too many lives, should never have happened.
Let me quickly go over to Nkululeko. We understand that you and some of your party members are at the scene. So tell us, what is the mood right there? Because I know some would be grieving, but then what is the latest information as regards that terrible incident?
Yeah, good afternoon. We're here in Boksburg at the scene of the explosion in itself, and we can confirm that there's a lot of heartbreak within the community, within the society. There's a lot of families who are actually coming to come and check out the scene as well once they found out that either some of their family members actually passed away and died at the scene, or some of them being in hospital. We've just now received events that there's about 15 people going to 16 now who are verified to have passed away. There's a family that we actually paid a visit to give our condolences because they lost a son. Only also to be told that the mother of the son is yet to be found. She can't be found. So it's very somber, a very somber mood. And we appeal to society to actually come out and give all the much support, whether it's funeral arrangements, but we're also appealing as well to professionals to actually come through. Especially those who are still currently right now. We're appealing to dermatologists, we're appealing to doctors, we're appealing to even plastic surgeons to actually come out and see the victims of burn wounds. So some of them are even said burn wounds that would require.
Well, Ekurhuleni, now, how sufficient are South African laws? Because Brett also mentioned it, and its inadequacies, looking at the protection of residents in such carnage. Now, we see tragedies of this happen, and so many houses and people are affected and be taken to the hospital. So, are the laws sufficient enough in helping residents who are affected by these kind of situations mitigate the situation?
Well, we're in a democratic state. Even the president of the country does not adhere to laws. And where there are laws that one would have to adhere to them, the enforcement of them is left lacking. I mean, Phala is a classic example of what happened. When it comes to such a matter, standing bylaws should be effected not only by the city of Ekurhuleni and its law enforcement, but there is also a provincial governance which is well capacitated financially as well to ensure that there is a proper enforcement of the laws that currently exist. Yes, the National Road Regulation Act is there to oversee the entire process of how hazardous and dangerous goods ought to be moved from one point to the other. But once again, it's the element of enforcing those particular laws. That is why the EFF has called the CEO, in actual fact, to be charged with culpable homicide and ultimately even murder in itself, because it is the CEO that monitors and manages the entity, manages and monitors the routes, and ultimately, when they are the ones who are supposed to oversee and monitor, they could have seen that this is not a correct route for any truck to take, and therefore it needs to detour and move to the correct path, because it is dangerous in its sense. That is why we're called off for the CEO to actually be charged and not the driver himself.
All right, Brett, talking about law enforcement and getting justice and reprieve, if that can be done. Some individuals and, of course, organizations, including the EFF, are saying that the CEO of the truck company should be sacked and criminal charges should be brought against the CEO and the company. Now, do you think the Good Party would also be towing this path? Are you also towing this path, you being a representative?
Well, we are making reference frequently to the laws that govern the transportation of dangerous goods. And when those laws, both the regulations and the legislation, are broken, it does create an offence in terms of the law, and the transport operating company and its management can be charged for breach of the law. So yes, I mean, there is the possibility that the transport operator and its management should be charged. and whether that should be culpable homicide or just breach of the transportation of dangerous goods regulations is something that the prosecuting authority will have to decide. But as I say, the culpability could extend as far as the management, if depending on how the questions that I posed at the beginning of this interview are answered. So I think that we need to get those answers from both the city of Ekurhuleni and from the transport operator and its management as to why this vehicle was on that road under a bridge that couldn't accommodate it. And once we have that simple question answered, I think we will know who's to blame and who needs to be prosecuted.
Well, a lot of questions to be answered there, but then our hearts go out to those who have lost their loved ones. Thank you so much, Brett, and of course, Nkululeko, for shedding light to this particular discourse.